Good morning, everyone. In the last class, we are trying to check with some of the example how we can work with the where functionality here. So here we identified how exactly based on the input the particular parameter is changing here, and we identified so how many parameters we are going to have. So based on that, we are going to get the particular length here. Getting the point. So this is we identified in the last class. Today we are going to see one important concept here, something called inheritance. Something called inheritance. How exactly this particular inheritance will come into the picture. So basically, I'm trying to write. So this is a very important concept you are going to discuss. So something called, this is also one of the OOPS like a feature in the object-oriented programming. So basically, what exactly we are going to do using this particular inheritance. So like whenever using this particular inheritance, so we are going to create a one common class. Getting the point. We are going to create a one class, so which is having some common functionality. Getting the point. It's like some common class we are going to create. The same common class we are going to access into the other classes. So what is the name of the common class we are going to call? It's like a super class we are going to call, and which is inheriting to any class. So the class we are going to call as a subclass here. So basically, we are going to work like this. Super to sub. Super to subclass. Getting the point. So here in the particular superclass, we are going to define some of the common functionality. So if we want to use in the subclass, we are going to create a one more class here. And using, we are having the keyword call. Initially, we check with the extend keyword, and later we can check with another keywords here. Getting the point. So carefully observe here, using this particular extend keyword, what we are doing here, whatever the common functionality available in the superclass, we are going to access into the subclass. So this is known as the inheritance concept. And inside this particular inheritance, we are going to have different types of inheritance. So we'll see one by one how exactly the particular each inheritance is going to work. Getting the point. So to work on this example, first what we need to do, let me create a simple example. Here I'm going to take something called inheritance. Yeah. So in I'm going to use here the name of the class, and so this particular class having some of the features here, something called into I comma j. So as of now we are not code here. So simple example we want to show. So why show and j, I'm going to create a one method here, show and j, and simply what I will do, I'm going to call the system.out.println method here. And using this, what I'm going to do, I will try to provide the message here. Something called ing values here. Getting the point, ing. And I'm going to create a one more class here. Inb. Getting the point. So this particular class is going to extend from the super class here. So just now we created the class called in here. So here at class level, observe here. So I'm working with one keyword called extends. So what we are going to do, whenever we are working with this extend keyword, what we can do, so whatever the common functionality available in the super class, we can access into the this particular class called an INB. So INB here it's going to work as a subclass. INA is going to work as a super class here. Okay. Observe here what I'm doing. I'm defining only one variable called k. And here, so only one method, something called show k I'm defining here. And inside this, I want to print k value. The k value, what I'm doing is, I'm using this particular show method to print the k value. And later, what I'm doing is, so if you observe carefully, I'm calling the one more method here, something called sum. And what I'm doing here, I place k. So here I'm going to work with one brace because here we are having more than one value to make the sum of I place k. But if you observe carefully, even though this particular I and k values we are not defining in the particular class called INB class, getting the point. So we are not getting any compilation error. We are not getting any compilation error. Getting the point. So carefully observe here, the INJ values are coming from the wave. So this INA class here. Getting the point. In INA, we define the two variables, something called int I hyphen, something called I comma j. Right. And using this particular extend keyword, what we are doing is we are the common functionality we are trying to load into the subclass. So this is the way we can access the superclass variables inside the subclass. So this is the beauty of inheritance we are going to achieve here. Right. And after creating this particular sum method and show method, now what I'm going to do inside this class, I'm going to create a main method here. Getting the point. So initially we'll check with I'm going to create a superclass. Right. I'm going to create a superclass object here, and after that I'm going to create subclass object. So this is very important here. Observe carefully how exactly I'm trying to create this object. After creating these two objects, what I'm doing is a dot height. How much I want to specify? Something called a dot j 20. Right. So b dot k, something called 30. Getting the point. And before calling or like before initializing this b dot k, what we can do? So using this particular a reference, we can call the method show inj. Show inj. So this particular show inj method is available in the class called INA, which is a super class to this particular class called INB. Right. And later I'm initializing the value of k. And after that, what I'm doing here? So what we can do, we'll create a we'll try to initialize the value of the INJ variable using the subclass reference. So carefully observe here, b dot I is equals to something called 40, b dot j is equals to something called 50, b dot k is equals to 60. So if you observe carefully, even though we are using the subclass reference, still we are able to access the superclass variables here. Still we are able to access the superclass variable. So this is very important here. So as of now, this kind of example we did not discuss. So basically, whenever we are trying to create an object, so using the same class reference, we are trying to initialize a variable, the particular class level variable here. But here, this ing, it's not available in the particular class called inb, right? So which are coming from the ina class. So which is a superclass to the inb. Getting the point. So this is the important feature we are going to use, like using this particular inheritance. And after that, what I'm doing is, so if you observe carefully, subfeature dot, we can call the show ing method. Getting the point. Along with that, we can call k method. We can call the k method. And after that, what I'm doing is, I'm going to call sum method. So this is very important here. So using the subclass reference, what are the functionality we are going to call here? So that is, so as I explained here, whenever we are creating the common class we are going to access to the inheritance class here, something called the subclass we are going to call here. Observe, if I'm going to run the same example, so launching the subclass here, it's taking some time to launch. You can observe here, ing values we are getting from the 10, 9, 20. And if you observe, this method is called using the superclass reference. And one more ing is called here. One more ing is called, but the values are different here. If you observe carefully, 40, 50 we are getting. The 40, 50 we specified using the subclass reference. And 60, the 60 we are getting with the subclass reference here. And after that, we are getting some of the values. Some of the values here, something called 150. Getting the point. Now observe here, I want to specify. So carefully observe, if I'm going to call a dot sum. So can we access this a dot sum here? So see, if I'm trying to access, we are getting some error here. The sum method is not defined in the type ina. The sum method is not defined in ina. And observe one more, using the superclass reference, if I'm going to call show k method, the k method also not defined in the show method also not defined in the particular class called ina. So what I want to share here, so we can access whatever the features are available in the superclass, getting the point, with the reference of subclass. But here, with the superclass reference, we cannot access the subclass features. With the reference of superclass reference, we cannot access the subclass features. So this is very important here. From top to bottom, it is applicable, and bottom to top, it's not going to applicable here. Bottom to top is nothing but subclass features. Subclass features we cannot access the with the superclass reference. So the example here, superclass reference is a and the subclass method we have defined sum. So this particular sum is not available in the superclass called ina. So that's the reason we are getting an error. But here, so even though the superclass variables, something called I comma j, we are accessing with the subclass reference. So that is called b dot I or b dot j. Getting the point. So this is applicable. So this is applicable. So this information I want to share. So whenever we are working with the simple example, how exactly we are achieving here. Right. So we'll check with one more example to get more clear about this particular inheritance. So let's see what I want to do. I'm going to create a one more class here, or we can check here. So inside this particular same class, I'm going to add more information here. And instead of working this particular j, what I will do, private into j. Getting the point. Whenever I'm making this particular private int j, so carefully observe here, if I'm going to save all the classes, so we are getting a compilation error. You can observe here. So I want to comment this particular true, but still we are getting an error here. So if you observe carefully, this is we identified the private variables we cannot access outside of the class. Same information, whenever we are working with the inheritance, the private variable cannot be used in the subclass. So if you observe carefully, even though we are having the same class reference, we are unable to access the J here. Because, so you can observe here, the field INA is not visible. INA.j is not visible. So because of, we are having some accessibility restrictions here. And you can check here, this field INA.j is not visible. Getting the point. So here also you can check here the three, wherever we are using this particular J information, wherever we are using the particular J, we are unable to access the J value because of the private access modifier. So this is I want to share information. So even though the private variable cannot be accessed in the inheritance, something called subclass. Okay, so we'll go for the same example in the particular box class. So we have already created one custom class here, something called box here. So we check here what exactly we implemented in the box class. So in the box class, we are having the default constructor and one parameter constructor, right? Some of the methods also we are having set volume and set volume also overloaded method. One is the volume here. Getting the point. So we'll try to check with using this particular box class how exactly we can use in the inheritance. Right. Now what I'm doing here, I'm going to create one more class here. Box weight. So I'm creating box weight here. One more class here. So this particular box weight, what exactly I'm going to do? So initially we'll try to check with extending from the box class. So we'll try to extend from the box class here. Once we extended from the box class, I'm creating one variable to the specific to this particular class called box weight. This variable cannot access in the superclass reference. Weight. Getting the point. And so to identify weight of this particular box, I'm creating here and so this is our constructor. What exactly I'm doing here, if we observe carefully, this constructor having 4 parameters I'm going to take. So width, height, and depth. So the last one here, W. W is nothing but weight. So the first parameter is defining as a width of this particular box. The last parameter is defining as a weight of the box. W. Height is equals to H. Depth is equals to D. Okay, these are the 4 parameters. So carefully observe, we are having 4 parameters here. The 4 parameter we are assigning into the class level variable here, something called instance variable. Okay, after creating this particular constructor, I'm not doing anything here. I'm not doing anything here. So simply we'll create an object of this particular box weight class. we're having 4 parameters here. So we'll try to change this particular values of this particular parameter. First one is 10, second one is 20, third one is 30, and fourth one is called 40. Right. So what I will do, using this particular weight reference, I'm going to call value. I'm going to call the value here. Getting the point. So we'll try to check what exactly is the value of this particular box we are going to get here. We're having an what happened? Value is okay. Let me make it visible this particular variable. So we'll go for the box dot value method. What we are doing internally. Okay. So we have to be handle with sys out. So we'll see how exactly it's working internally. So something called 6,000 we are getting. We are getting 6,000 here. But if you observe carefully, whenever we are calling this particular box weight, constructor, what we are doing is we are setting all the 4 parameters into the local variable to the instance variable. And after that, we are calling the value method. But even though if we are calling the value method, we are performing of this particular multiplication operation on the 3 variables. So we are not working on the 4 variables. Getting the point. So to work on the 4, what we can do, again the same value method we need to define inside this particular box weight class. So then only we can perform this particular multiplication operation on the 4 parameters. So see, if I'm going to define this particular value method, the output we may change the different here. What happened? Again we are getting 6,000 only. Okay, sorry. Here we need to change weight, because we need to add 4 parameters here. So you can see the output is changed here. Why the output is changed here? So because we added 4 parameters. So if I'm trying to add the same information into the box class, can we access here? This variable we cannot access here. This variable we cannot access here. So I explained here. I explained why we cannot access here, because this variable is not defined in the particular box class. This particular variable is defined in the box weight class. So this is the difference. This is the difference, the box class and box weight class. So important concept here. So how we can achieve the inheritance using the superclass to subclass. Okay. So now one more example I want to create here using the superclass reference. So we are trying to access the subclass feature. Okay. If you observe carefully in the box weight, along with the box weight, I am going to create one more object called box class. Here I am calling the default constructor here. Here I am calling the default constructor. So after that, what I am doing here, I'm defining one variable here, and using this particular variable, what exactly we are going to do? We are going to call by dot value. We are assigning into this particular value, and later what exactly I am going to do? So value I am going to call, right? And after this, if you observe carefully, write dot value, and I'm going to specify one more sys out here. Here, using this particular reference, what I'm doing is the variable I'm trying to access here, right? And after this, what I'm doing here, whatever we are trying to get the object, I'm assigning into the superclass. So something called box is equals to weight. Getting the point? Whatever the information we are having, the same information I'm reassigning into box class here, right? And after assigning this particular the box demo class reference to the box class, what I'm doing here, again box dot value I'm calling here. So this particular value I'm trying to assign into the value method. So we try to print the same information here using the val, right? And after that, what I'm doing here, I want to access the variable here. I want to access the variable. So what is the variable I'm trying to access? Something called weight. So if I observe carefully, even though if I are trying to assign the object, the subclass object into the superclass, so still we are unable to access the variable information here. Getting the point? So sometimes some people may not understand. So already we copy, like we passed the whatever the subclass object into the superclass, so that they may think so this variable also is copied into the superclass. So using the superclass reference, we can access the subclass whatever the information we are having. But if we observe here, still we are unable to access with the superclass reference. What is the superclass reference here? Box is a superclass object of this particular box weight class. Getting the point? So this is very important here. Still, we are unable to access the weight information. So that is I want to share here. And if I'm going to save this example, let me run the same example. So if you observe the value, okay, sorry. So this is the value we are getting, and later the 40 we are getting of the weight variable, and again we are calling 24,000. So only the difference here, what we are doing here, we are calling, like we are assigning into the the subclass object into the superclass. So which method is calling here? Even though superclass reference, we are calling the subclass method. So if you observe carefully, this line I'm not going to pause. So I want to share one more example here. I'm not copying the subclass object into the superclass. So see the difference here. So see the difference here. The output, the value of this particular box we are getting differently. Getting the point? So this is very important here. So we'll see how exactly the values is changing here. We'll try to focus on using simple debug mode. So try to check with the variable section, the right side corner, so that you will get more understanding how exactly it's going to work here. So this right side section is going to give more clear. And now you can check here. So inside this particular weight reference, how many variables we are able to access? All the 4 variables here. All the 4 variables here. Right. Now you can observe here when we are calling the default constructor here, what we are doing here? So what we are doing here, the same information. We'll see what exactly in the default constructor we are having. So the default values we are initializing or not. Getting the point. And this is about the box class default constructor, and this is the box weight class reference. So these are the 2 references here. And whenever we are calling here, so which method is calling here? So I'm trying to go into the method. I'm trying to go into the method here. So which method is calling? You can observe the reference here, box weight. The box weight value method is calling here. Right. And now we are having all the variable information, width having 10, height having 20, depth having 30, the weight having 40. So this is the way we are calling off the volume method. Now the volume is printing. So weight also is printing. What we are doing here, if you carefully observe here, the box reference is very important here. We are having how many variable section here? 3 variable section here. So once this particular initialization is completed, we'll see how many variable we are able to see. How many variable we are able to see here? Something called 4 variables here. 4 variables. But see the reference here, the box reference here. Getting the point. So this is the one advantage we are going to get, even though this particular weight method is the weight variable is not available in the superclass object. So what we are doing, whenever we are trying to copy an object to subclass object into the superclass, so we can able to access this particular width here. So the variable is not giving any error. Now observe, again I'm going to the value method. Now we can observe till this particular variable, even though we are calling the superclass reference, the value method, it's calling the subclass value method. Right. So we'll try to check the same information here. It's printing. And this is, at this time, I'm trying to save this example. So again, I'm trying to run in the debug mode. So see the difference between the current example and now. We don't want to go with for the. Okay. So if you observe this weight, the weight reference is calling the subclass object, and so we are not like initialize the subclass object into the superclass. So we'll try to check now which method is going to call here. I'm going into the method here. You can observe here. Now the value method is called box class. Now the value method is called box class, not the box weight. Previously it is called the box weight. Now it is calling the box class. So this is I want to share here. So based on the reference here, so which method calling? So this is important here. Getting the point. So this is all about the. This is all about the. So box and box weight. Box and box weight. Object reference here. And we are going to work with the super keyword here. So using the super keyword, how we can achieve here. So initially we check with this keyword. Now we are going to work with the super keyword here. Okay. So instead of initializing these variables here, what we can do? So simply we can call superclass constructor. Something called now I'm calling the superclass constructor. So whenever this is also very important, where we are calling. So we are calling from the constructor or we are calling from any method. So wherever we are calling, the particular code is going to execute. Simple example here, I'm calling from the constructor here. So the superclass constructor is going to execute. But this is very important here. The superclass constructor, it has to be available with these 3 parameters. Getting the point. So after this, we can comment this section here. So superclass also, it is a first executable statement, same like which we achieved in the this keyword. This is also first executable statement here. Right. Now we'll see whether we are having the particular three parameters constructor or not. We are having, yes, we are having three parameters constructor. Using this particular three parameters constructor, what we are doing is internally we are calling this keyword. So to call the two parameterized constructor. Okay, back to here. After calling this, what we can do? After calling this, again, I want to run the same example here. I want to run the same example. So observe carefully. So initially we are having the console having the different information. Now we are having the different information. So why the information is showing here? So basically, whenever we are calling this particular box weight constructor, what exactly it's doing here? Internally, this super constructor is going to call. But when we are calling the previous example, we did not use the super. So directly we initialize the values here. Getting the point. When this particular super constructor is executed, so we define some of the methods, some of the sort information inside the each constructor. Getting the point. So this is the difference between using the super keyword and calling the normal constructor with all the initialization. So instead of making the variable inside this particular subclass, what we can do, so we can call the super class using the super keyword here. Okay. So now what exactly we are doing here? The same thing we can achieve inside the particular method also. Inside the method also. So we'll check with the method concept later, but make sure how exactly we are working the super is important. Okay. So this is all about the simple inheritance. The simple inheritance we are checking here. And now we are going to move to the another important concept here, multi-level hierarchical inheritance we are going to call. So this is the another multi-level inheritance here. So we'll try to check with how exactly it's going to work here. The simple class inheritance is having only one superclass and one subclass here. But make sure this is having something little bit different here. The multi-level hierarchical. Let me add some diagrammatic here. Basically, this is the superclass, and so this is the subclass, and one more we are going to have one more subclass. So see the relation here, how it's happening here. Initially, we are working with superclass with subclass. Directly, we are having only one relation. But here, we are having more than one here. So sometimes this class is going to act as a subclass. Sometimes the same class is going to act as a superclass. Whenever this working as it's going to treat it as a subclass. And when we are working with these two classes, it's going to work with the super. Getting the point. So basically, this is the intermediate class we are going to call for these two classes. For these two classes. Getting the point. So we'll try to check with how exactly we can achieve. So this particular inheritance, this particular inheritance we are going to call as a multi-level inheritance. Multi-level inheritance. Observe here how exactly we can achieve here. So already we created some of the classes here. Something called box class we created, and the second class also we created, that is called box weight. And now I'm going to create one more class here, that is called something called shipment class here. One more class I want to create here. shipment class. Right. So this particular shipment class is not going to extend from the box. It's going to extend from the box weight. So carefully observe here. This is important here. So it's not going to extend from the box. So it's going to extend from the box weight class. And what happened here? Okay, is expecting the constructor here, because in the box weight we don't have any default constructor. So because of this we are getting, so we are trying to add the constructor here. Okay, now so we try to check with the default constructor and everything here. Okay, the simple example I want to add. First we'll go for the box class and we'll check default constructor. So inside the default constructor, I don't want to use these values. I want to use some minus values here. So initially we are trying to work with this particular minus values. Right. This is the default constructor. And so whenever we are specifying here, what I can do, whenever we are specifying here, okay, so we can work with the same constructors here. Basically, I'm trying to change the constructor here. Okay, just wait here. We will create one more class here. Else we can change this class to box weight, something called box 2. Refactor, rename. I'm trying to create this class as a box 1 because I'm going to create one more class as a box here. Okay. Now observe. Again I'm creating box class here. This particular box class having some of the information is expecting one as a object, and before creating I want to use the 3 variables here. What are the 3 variables we are going to use? Width, height. These 3 variables. Right. Width is equals to obj dot width. Height is equals to obj dot height. Depth is equals to obj dot depth. Let me use a single. Right. So this is the box constructor here, and the box constructor is taking object reference here. And one more constructor I want to create with 3 parameters. So W, H, and D. Right. So what we can do, width is equals to W, height is equals to H, depth is equals to D. So this is the one more constructor. And after creating this, I want to create one default constructor. Width is equals to -1, height is equals to -2, -3. And one more constructor. Observe how many constructs I'm creating here. Something called double N. width is equals to height is equals to depth is equals to length. Right. So this is the one more constructor, and after this constructor, double value method. Double value method. So these are the value method. Getting the point. Now what I'm going to do, we'll create a inside this particular box weight class, because this particular box weight class is extending. Oh, sorry. Change to the box. We want to use the box only, not box one. Okay. So if you observe carefully, the box weight is extending from the box, and whenever it is extended from the box, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a constructor box weight here. This is the default constructor. Inside the default constructor, what I'm doing is I'm going to call super. Getting the point. And we are having the variable called weight is equals to something called -4. Right. This is the one constructor, and the second constructor I want to call, that is we already created the 4 parameters constructor. Okay. So now one more constructor I'm going to call. So this constructor is going to take as an object parameter. So this object parameter, what I'm doing is simply I will call super obj. Getting the point. After calling the super obj, what I can do, obj dot weight. So make this class as this constructor as a public. So observe how many constructors we created. 3 constructors as of now. Right. We'll try to check with one more constructor. One more constructor, that is called box weight len comma double m. So super len I'm going to call, and weight is equals to m. Right. So how many constructors we define in the super class? So all the constructors we are calling from the subclass here. All the constructors we are calling from the subclass. So what is the subclass right now? Box weight is a subclass. So I'm going to create one more class here, that is called shipment here. We'll check here the box weight. The shipment is extended from the box weight here. So how we can achieve this particular box weight here? If you are going to create a constructor in the shipment class, what are the constructors we need to create here? The first here I'm going to specify the variable called cost. I'm specifying here, and one is the shipment constructor. This particular shipment constructor, it is a default constructor. Now I'm going to call super default constructor. One more constructor I'm creating here. So is expecting 3 parameters. Getting the point. So here what we can do, len comma m. After this, cost is equals to COS. So this is a one more constructor, and the default constructor we specified. Now I'm going to create one object type of constructor here. So that is called shipment obj. Simply we'll call the obj cost is equals to cost. Right. So this is the third constructor here. And one more constructor I want to create. So it's going to take all the parameter double height, double d, and here one more we are going to call something called w co. So these many parameters constructor, but here what we can do, w comma height comma depth comma and width. So these four parameters constructor I'm calling, and finally specifying the local variable value. Right. So these are the four constructors, and whenever we are calling the default constructor, I want to specify the default value. Getting the point. So we'll check how exactly this constructor calling also, it's very important here. And after this, inside this particular main method, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create an object of this particular shipment. Ship new shipment. So which constructor we can use? So the fourth constructor we can work here. This is the constructor I'm going to work. So something called 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. So this parameter five parameter constructor I'm calling. Same way, I'm going to call one more. So something called here ship2. I'm going to call ship2 constructor. Getting the point. Now I'm defining one variable here. Right. So after using this particular shipment dot volume, so we'll try to print this particular value. Here, what we can do, volume I'm going to print. Later, what we can do, we can check with the cost of this particular shipment. And cost. So this is the simple example I want to run. Volume. What is the volume we are getting here? So why we are getting this something called the 24 related volume here? Because so in the box weight we are already defined the value method. So this value method is calling. If I'm going to comment here, I'm going to comment which value method is going to call. The superclass value method is going to call. So that is we are going to get something called 6000. Getting the point. So this is the way we can work. This is the way we can call the superclass method. And whenever we are defining into the subclass, so first is going to check in the subclass, and later is going to call the, if it is not available, it's going to call the superclass. So we'll try to check with here, because this is very important here. Using this particular constructor, we'll try to put a breakpoint how exactly the constructors are calling here. That is we already implemented in the last example. So one more time we are going to check here how exactly this particular constructors are calling. Later we'll try to check with the method overriding. Method overriding. How exactly the method overriding is going to work? We already implemented method overloading concept. So tomorrow we are going to check with our method overriding concept. So any questions regarding today class? Any questions regarding this particular simple inheritance as well as multi-level inheritance? Okay. So if we don't have any questions, so we'll try to close the today class and we'll try to check with the tomorrow with the new concept here, how exactly the constructors calling internally. Later we'll move on to the method overriding concepts.